Hey, I'm David. I'm going to talk about Downstream a little bit. A game that maybe you've seen screenshots on, but I just want to tell you what's going on here. This is what it looks like. This is a game that runs in a browser, fully on chain. And just to dive in a little bit and explain how it works. This is the player character here. The player character has a bunch of stats that can be upgraded. They can have an inventory, things that they carry, and those things could be transferred to a wallet. Uh, the player mines resources called goo out of the world, and that goo can be used to create buildings. And those buildings can have functionality. Those buildings are a smart contract that players are interacting with, and they're interacting with it in the user interface you see there. There has a concept of quests that you can set for players, or the game can set for you as a player. And finally, there's combat in the game, combat between things that you find in the world, not PvP combat, but combat with the buildings that other players create and some obstacles in the way, that kind of thing. So that's some of the components of how the game is built. We've always said that we love the idea of permissionless composability. I think that's like one of the coolest things about fully on-chain games. And so we built the game with this in mind. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples now that have been created already. This is a game called Hexcraft that 1KX and the team built, which is a sort of MOBA of sorts. You can see one team on the left making a way to battle another team on the other side. First to destroy the base wins. That's the way that works. This is a sort of goofy, simple game that we created called Ducks versus Burgers. Two teams to compete to create the most amount of duck buildings or burger buildings over a period of time. This one here, built by our friends at Rockaway X, is a game called The Quest, where players make their way through a maze, solving puzzles, sort of single-player experience, you can see. And finally, this is a game called Tonk Attack, built by the guys at Tonk, which features hidden information. It's sort of Among Us, a mafia-style game that's been built. And just quick shout out, I know the guys have released Greeby, which is a sort of library, as I understand it, for doing hidden information on chain that might be good to look at if you're interested in building that with any game this week. Anyway, one thing I want to say is that I think particularly in a hack, it's really easy to pick something that is too big to create in the time. And including the games that I just showed you, the reality is you're not going to be able to build that. That was probably about a week's worth of work. So I want to make a point for anything that anybody's building to try and sort of rein that in and make sure that people actually get something done over the period of time. And I'm deliberately picking examples that I know can be done in the relatively short amount of time that we have. So I'm going to pick some no-code solutions, no-code ideas, some low-code and some ideas around interoperability. Okay, let's do no-code. So this is the map editor that comes with the game, just runs in the browser. And I've created a little hexagon that then shows up in the world. There we go, there's my player character. And we have something in the game called a building fabricator. The idea of the building fabricator is it's a simple interface that lets you create a factory which exists as a smart contract in the game. So here I decide I'm going to make a food factory, creates food using goo that it's found in the world. And that's what it does. That's the inputs, some red and green and blue goo. And the output is food. And then you can click deploy. And that smart contract and the associated functionality has now been deployed into the game, so you can any player can now build it and interact with it. So we've got a factory in the world that turns goo into food. So let's extend that a bit. Let's put some extractors down so that you can extract that goo from the world and put it into the factory. And let's make a burger shack. The burger shack turns food into amazing burgers. There we go. Takes input as food, output as burgers. And there we go. That's on the map. And next, let's build a trophy case where it trades burgers and outputs a trophy. And there we go. Let's put that there. Let's do the same for the other side. So we've got a red and a green team. Let's make it look a little prettier. And now, this is a game I invented, by the way, called Burger Time. Did this a couple of days ago. And here's the idea of the game. Players go and get the goo from the world. They turn it into food in this factory that then's turned into burgers. I mean, you're getting this. It's a very simple game. And then players then turn, if they get 5 burgers, they turn that into a trophy. And then, you can decide whether or not you want to just be very industrious as the green team, or whether or not you want to sort of create havoc and destroy the extractors, or whether or not you want to sort of steal the burgers off the production line. So there's a sort of really simple, goofy simulation game, I guess. The point is there no code at all. That's all running on chain, but no lines of code were affected. There we go. So that's one idea, a sort of simulation idea. You could use a similar sort of thing to create a strategy game where there's 2 teams and they have to fight for resources, maybe kill some monsters, upgrade their weapons, go and fight the opposing team's base, something like that. So that's a couple of ideas, no-code ideas. I'm going to talk about some low-code things. And the way we approach that is like this. So here's some components that we built in the game. And you can guess what these are. This one's a counter, this one's a locked door, this one's a key. This is an ERC1155 converter, I'll talk about it in a bit. These are blockers, these are tiles that change color based on actions. Here's a timer that counts down. Here's the extractors. Here's a billboard of sorts that shows a PNG. And this is the factory. That factory you can think of as, or that building I should say, you can think of it as like the HQ of the game. Inside it is 3 files, a bit of JavaScript, Solidity, and a YAML file. And those can just be exported really easily. So you can create something, export that, and then start monkeying around with the containing files. The YAML is a configuration. The Solidity is the on-chain logic. And the JavaScript is what that looks like in terms of an interface. So super simple, tons of examples. And those components that I described, as you might imagine, we designed them to sort of connect together in a really easy way and create something that's maybe more interesting than my example. So here's a couple of other sort of low-code examples. One is a puzzle game, stand on different tiles. Maybe they change color, unlock doors, get a key. I don't know, some kind of puzzle game. Another one is a quest game, solve the riddles, a bit like the one I showed earlier. Solve riddles of some kind and progress through the maze. And I just want to talk about a couple of interop ideas. One thing to say is we're one of the teams that are putting something on Redstone in a couple of weeks, and we're running on tests on Garnet at the moment. So if there's another project that's running on Garnet, then it's relatively easy to communicate between those games, do something interesting from an interoperability point of view. The other thing I would say is this thing, the sort of ERC1155 converter, so things in our game can be turned into 1155s that can then be read via another game. So we try to do some things that make interoperability a little easier, both in and out. When you create something in Downstream, then you can either use an existing zone or you can create your own. And these are some zones that I guess we created this week. And you too can create a zone. One of the cool things is that if you create something that you're happy with this week, then you get to publish it as part of Redstone Mainnet in a couple of weeks. All right, I think that's it. These are some of the Downstream guys that are here. So if you want questions or you want to know more, come and speak to me or some of these people. And if you're interested in any form, then you can join our Telegram or come and ask us more. Okay.